Texas has to replace another position coach, this time a big one, Tashard Choice. Texas Runningback Coach is headed to the National Football League. We discuss on today's episode of Locked On Longhorns.
You are Locked On Longhorns, your daily podcast on the Texas Longhorns. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Locked On Longhorns, the show. Jonathan Davis, your host. Today's episode of Locked On Longhorns brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. On today's episode of Locked On Longhorns, once again, in the first segment, Tashard Choice, Texas Runningback Coach, is leaving to go to the National Football League, and so we will have to find a new running back coach, a big loss for the Texas Longhorns staff. In the second segment, 14 players from the Texas Longhorns football team have been invited to the NFL Combine, which is a record. We discuss and give those players their flowers in the second segment. And then in the last segment, because today is a special day for some people, 5 things I love. All right, it's going to be a lot of love in the air today. So 5 things I love about this Texas football team. All of that and more on today's episode of Locked On Longhorns, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Happy Valentine's Day to all those who are celebrating. To those who are not, happy Friday, right? Either way, you got a reason to be happy today. But yesterday, we got some news that made Texas Longhorn fans not so happy, right? Tashard Choice is headed to the National Football League to be the running back coach of the Detroit Lions. And first of all, I just want to say that I'm happy for Tashard Choice, right? I'm going to make it about him before, I make it about me and us real quick. Obviously this is something that he wanted to do to coach in the National Football League. I'm not sure if he aspires to be an NFL head coach at some point, offensive coordinator, if he just wants to be a running back coach in the NFL, whatever it is, right? He's one step closer to his dreams. And fulfilling what he wants to do. And he's just meant so much to the University of Texas over the last couple of years. And, I'm happy for him that he's able to take that step. And we knew that, this was a possibility because he had interviewed for the Dallas Cowboys running back coaching job, and then ultimately decided to come back to the University of Texas. And we were told that he got his pay increased, basically incentive to stay. And so, we took that, that big deep sigh, and we were like, oh, okay, we almost lost Tashard Choice, but he's back. A huge win for the Texas staff. And then Detroit comes calling, and he's headed to Detroit. And I think this is huge for Tashard Choice, right? Because, he didn't make a move to the NFL just to say he's in the NFL, right? He's on a championship contender. He very well could be on a staff that wins the Super Bowl in the next couple of years. I mean, that Lions football team looks really good, right? And it feels like they're knocking on the door. And then on top of that, the familiarity with Jahmyr Gibbs. We all know that he coached Jahmyr Gibbs at Georgia Tech before he came to, Texas. And then Jahmyr Gibbs went to Alabama. And so, not only get to go back to, you get to go to the National Football League, right? You get to coach for the Detroit Lions staff, a staff that, like I said, very well could win the Super Bowl in coming years. They're going to be a really good football team. And you have familiarity, right? You're coaching Jahmyr Gibbs, probably a top 5 running back in the NFL at this point, and David Montgomery. So that's just a really good job, and I'm happy that Tashard Choice got it. A lot of people have said it. It's a big loss for the Texas Longhorns, and it feels bigger than kind of any position coach we've lost because, maybe it's just his personality. Maybe it was the fact that he was out there a little bit more than some of the other coaches. But Tashard Choice kind of just felt larger than life. You know what I mean? He felt like more than a running backs coach. Like he felt like damn near like an assistant to Steve Sarkisian. Anytime anything was happening or going on the TV and they cut to the sidelines, you saw Tashard Choice. He just felt like more than a position coach, right? It felt like if somebody on the defense needed something, like they could go to Tashard Choice, right? Just like a mentor, a motivator, somebody who played in the National Football League. That means a lot to these players at the University of Texas. And it felt like more than football. And I know some of the running backs have said this, but I feel like anybody on the team would attest to this. More than football, it felt like he was just somebody who you could talk to about life, right? Like Tashard Choice feels like somebody that you could just go to and have conversations with, productive conversations with about life, right? And so I just think it's a loss to the staff. It's a loss to the locker room. It's the University of Texas. You're going to be able to bring in a good running back coach, but Tashard Choice just felt like one of those guys, right? That just increases the morale of your football program. He's going to do a lot for the Detroit Lions, just like he did a lot for, the Texas Longhorns over the last 3 years. We've always largely looked at Texas as running back U, or, a candidate for running back U. But Tashard Choice certainly, helped keep us in that conversation the last couple of years. Obviously when you come over and you're coaching running backs like, Bijan Robinson and Roshan Johnson, you know, at some points the job can kind of do itself. You know what I mean? Like, those are really good players. But he was the running back coach when Bijan Robinson won the Doak Walker Award, right? The best running back in college football. He found a way, him and Steve Sarkisian found a way to not only have the best running back in college football in Bijan Robinson, but still be able to feature Roshan Johnson, the leader of the team, so much so that he was a third or fourth round draft pick. I can't remember exactly when he went, but still, a very solid draft pick for Roshan Johnson as a backup. And then they were able to use Keelan Robinson creatively, you know what I'm saying, as the third running back and on special teams, to the point that he got drafted by the Jacksonville Jaguars, right? And so, Tashard Choice was the running back coach that was able to oversee that. We talked about, him coaching Jahmyr Gibbs at Georgia Tech. And now Jahmyr Gibbs and Bijan Robinson are both top 5 to 6 running backs in the National Football League, right? That has to do with, Tashard Choice and his coaching. Then you come back in 2023 and it's like, oh, okay, you lost Bijan Robinson, you lost Roshan Johnson and Keelan Robinson, but a lot of people were excited about Jonathan Brooks, right? And then for the first 2 games, Cedric Baxter is starting. And that's another thing. You talk about not just the coaching, but the recruiting. To be able to go into the state of Florida and get the number 1 running back in the country and Cedric Baxter to come to the University of Texas, that's what Tashard Choice brought to this football program. It is the recruiting aspect. It felt like he could go out and get any running back that he wanted, just with his charisma, his personality, and his resume, So you go get Cedric Baxter. He starts the first 2 games. And then you come in and bring in Jonathan Brooks. And he was like running back 2 for the first 2 games. Then over the next 8 games before he tears his ACL, I mean, he reaches the 1,000-yard mark, probably 1,300 yards from scrimmage in an 8-game span. I mean, it was just magical what Jonathan Brooks was able to do in 2023 before he tore his ACL. And, that's Tashard Choice, right? Under his direction, under his leadership. And then after that, you have 2 young running backs in Jaden Blue and Cedric Baxter, and they look like a really good tandem until the Washington game, right? Until we lose, but they looked really good in that Washington game as well. And then you come back this year, and you're dealt a hell of a blow when Cedric Baxter, you find out that he's going to be lost for the season, right? But Jared Gibson, a true freshman, he looked really good. I have to give Tashard Choice credit for that. Jaden Blue, you expect him to come in and be your number 1. And, he had fumble issues, but for the most part, he looked like Jaden Blue this season. Really good. I love the fact that he had a really strong playoff run and ended his, Texas career with 2 receiving touchdowns against Ohio State. But you talk about, the value of a running back coach, and it's being able to, when you have to go to the next man up, being able to go to the next man up and it being a value for your football team. And I think we saw that this year. If we could talk about anything that Tashard Choice did while he was at the University of Texas, which directly correlates with the turnaround of this program, right? Coming from the time we were 8-5 to now being a playoff team. So when you look at that with Tashard Choice, you're saying this year he was dealt a hell of a blow, right? Losing 2 running backs to season-ending injury. Jared Gibson looks good as a freshman. Jaden Blue, whom we had seen in previous years, looked as explosive as ever. But you took Trey Wisner from largely being a special teams player to one of the best running backs in college football. It's not all Tashard Choice's, doing. But under his leadership, Trey Wisner, at the drop of, an Achilles and an ACL, right, went from a special teams player to one of the best running backs in college football. So Tashard Choice has just meant so much to this program over the last 3 years. Like I said, he's felt like more than a position coach. He damn near felt like Steve Sarkisian's equal at times, and just a larger than life personality. And I know somebody that's everybody's going to miss in that building, and all of us as fans are going to miss. And the new running back coach is going to have big shoes to fill. because, like I said, Tashard Choice was just larger than life, and he's going to do really good with the Detroit Lions in the National Football League. Dan Campbell's made some really, really good hires, and this is just another one with Tashard Choice at running back coach. And like I said, him being reunited with Jahmyr Gibbs, one of the best running backs in the National Football League, on a Super Bowl contender, is really cool to see. Quick word from our sponsors, and then we get into the Texas Longhorns. 14 players invited to the NFL Combine. We discuss after the break. All right, today's episode of Locked On Longhorns brought to you by Factor Meals. Are you looking to optimize your nutrition this year? Factor makes eating well easy with chef-prepared, dietitian-approved meals that are fresh, never frozen, and ready to heat and eat in just 2 minutes. With 40 options across 8 dietary preferences every week, you can customize your meals to fit your lifestyle, whether it's calorie smart, protein plus, or keto, I think it is. I always say that wrong. Like, whatever it is, I always say the opposite, but we're going with keto today. Plus, Factor even offers wholesome smoothies, breakfast, and grab-and-go snacks to keep you fueled all day long. The convenience is unbeatable. No prep, no mess, just great food in minutes. Eat smart with Factor. Get started at factormeals.com/lockedoncollege, 50 off, and use code Locked On College 50 off. That's the number 50. Once again, Locked On College 50 off to get 50% off your first box plus free shipping. That's code Locked On College 50 off at factormeals.com/Locked On College 50 off to get 50% off plus free shipping on your first box. All right, so 14 Longhorns received an invite to the NFL Combine. You know, when you have a really good football team, a lot of players are going to be celebrated for it at the end of the season. I said it a lot last year. Like, we knew Texas was a really good football team. We knew Texas had a ton of talent. You know, that team that lost to Washington. But this is where you really start to get the validation. You know, when you start to see how the NFL feels about the players on your football team. And we had a really good squad. And it's kind of like bittersweet at this time because it's like, damn, you know, this player might go in the first round. This player might go in the first round. This player might go in the first round. This player's going to the Senior Bowl. These players are going to the Combine. This player won this award. This player was an All-American, you know? And it's like, we didn't win a championship. And now they're gone, you know? So it's always a little bittersweet. But, you know, just as a forever Longhorn fan, it's really exciting for these guys, you know, because obviously there'll always be Longhorns, but that's just a stop for them. You know, that's just a means to, you know, achieving their ultimate goal, which is getting to the National Football League. And so, you know, now is when they really get to start their careers, you know, doing what they've wanted to do their entire lives. And so it's just a really exciting time for them. You know, obviously it sucks to see players like, you know, Andrew Makuba and Jade Barron and, you know, Kelvin Banks go, you know, after watching them ball out at the University of Texas for, you know, 1 to 4 years, Jada Beer, maybe 5, you know. But like I said, you know, the sweet part is seeing them fulfill their dreams, right? Like, I just had that feeling of watching the Super Bowl and seeing Xavier Worthy go for 157 yards and 2 touchdowns, like whether it was in garbage time or not. You know, just seeing him ball out, seeing him make plays all this year. You know, Bijan Robinson was on my fantasy team. Like, it's just so cool to see these guys that I've covered and watched, you know, at the University of Texas, you know, being able to ball out against the best in the world, you know, the top 1%. They're playing against the best in the world and doing their thing. So just a little super cool soapbox moment. But Texas has 14 players that are going to the NFL Combine. It is second most behind, you guessed it, Ohio State. Ohio State has more than 14 players going to the NFL Combine. But like I said, we'll look back and talk about how legendary that Ohio State roster was, and we'll stop gassing Ryan Day as a coach from winning with that roster. Anyways, look at it, 14 representatives. It breaks the mark set by Texas last year. So Texas had 11 players go to the NFL Combine last year, which was the most in program history. They broke it in a big way this year with 14, right? And all 11 players that went to the combine last year were drafted. So we'll see. Maybe Texas can get 14 drafted this year, which would break another record for the Texas Longhorns. So Steve Sarkisian doing big things in the last 3 years at the University of Texas. He's completely done a 180 with this football program. So players that did not get invited, right? First, we're going to start with them. David Benda did not get invited. That's not super surprising, but I'm glad he got an interception against Ohio State in his last game, making plays. Was always a really good player for us, really good leader. Mo Blackwell, Steven from Fanatic Perspective calls him game speed. Juan Davis, that makes sense. Silas Bolden, you would think that he might get an invite. Just what he showed as a receiver and a returner at Oregon State in here. Gavin Holmes came in and made some nice plays this year, and then Bill Norton and Jermaine Lole. None of them are crazy. Omissions. I thought maybe Silas Bolden can make it, but you understand. So a lot of players at a lot of schools that the NFL is looking at. You can't invite everybody. So the players that did make it, Quinn Ewers, of course. I'm not sure where he kind of ranks amongst the quarterbacks at this point. I was looking at Pro Football Focus's top 5 quarterbacks, and they had Shador, Cam, Jackson Dart, Will Howard, and Dylan Gabriel. Some people are going to have Jalen Milroe over Quinn Ewers because of his dual threat ability. But I still think he's probably locked into the second round. I had him going still in the first round. Now I think he might slip to the second round, but a lot of eyes are going to be on Quinn Ewers. I still think he'll be a very high draft pick. Jaden Blue. It's a lot of good running backs in this draft. But Jaden Blue has showed an explosive ability, in the running game and the passing game. I definitely think Jaden Blue will be drafted when. I'm not sure, the running back position has been devalued and he's not exactly an every down back, but somebody will take a chance on Jaden Blue and, be better off for it. Isaiah Bond, he has a chance to still be drafted really high. Coming into the season, he was in first round pick talks. I just think a lot of injuries and, lack of production down the stretch probably is going to, push him into the second round maybe. But if he comes out and runs a high 4.3 and looks really good, then he can definitely get himself locked into that second round conversation and maybe into the end of the first round for some teams looking for a wide receiver. Matthew Golden, coming into the season, we might have thought that he would be at, the University of Texas for multiple years. But, Isaiah Bond going down the way he did and just kind of not being productive for the Longhorns because of those injuries kind of led to Matthew Golden stepping up and, hearing himself in first round talks. Every mock I've seen, every big board I've seen has Matthew Golden as a first round pick. So a lot of eyes are going to be on him in this offseason process and, really happy for him. Gunnar Helm. And I forgot to say about Matthew Golden. He's always like a unique player to me because I was able to see him at Houston and Texas, right? So that's just like a personal thing. But I was able to see him at the University of Houston play against Texas. And then I was able to see him come to the University of Texas and play for us. So it was really cool. Just following his journey. Gunnar Helm, one of the best tight ends in the country. Probably, maybe a second. I see him more as a third round pick. But, somebody that's going to be a really good tight end in the National Football League definitely has value as a blocker and a receiver, especially after the catch. We saw that a lot this year. Kelvin Banks more than likely will be the first Longhorn drafted. Not sure if he'll be the first tackle drafted. I'm seeing a lot of Will Campbell from LSU, but you still expect Kelvin Banks to go in the top 10 to 15. Hayden Connor, invited to the combine, really good pass blocking guard, which is of huge value in a passing league in the National Football League. Jake Majors, just, another quarterback on the field, what he's meant to this Longhorns program in terms of the center position. I would have to look it up, but I'm fairly certain that nobody has ever started more games at the University of Texas than Jake Majors. That's going to bring a lot of value to a National Football League team. Cam Williams, just a big physical specimen, at the right tackle position. And yeah, he's probably going to be drafted. I think throughout the season, they had him as a first round pick, a lot of mocks. I would probably say more second or third now, but still, 6'6", 350, somebody that can just absolutely move people at that right tackle position. And then even like you saw the Eagles moved Mekhi Becton to guard, so maybe somebody can try him out at guard and he'll be really good as well. But Cam Williams has a bright future ahead of him. Vernon Broughton and Alfred Collins, what they were able to do in the middle of the defense this year, just elite play. I think Vernon Broughton had over 10 pressures in the playoffs alone, so played some of his best football in the biggest moments. And then Alfred Collins, I think like from Pro Football Focus, graded like an 88 on the year. So he was definitely a viable replacement for, Byron Murphy and Tavondre Sweat when it felt like, how are you going to replace those guys? So Vernon Broughton and Alfred Collins, both two guys who will be drafted. I'm excited to see in the middle of the defense. Alfred Collins, may sneak into the end of the first round, more than likely a high second round pick. And then Vernon Broughton, I would say somewhere between third and fourth. Barron Sorrell, a really good player for us that always played, biggest in the big moments, right? Against Alabama, in the playoff games. You just always remember when we needed a big play, him stepping up, So Barron Sorrell, excited to see where he goes, excited to see how he does at the combine. Jahdae Barron, I'm seeing a lot of late first, early second round talk. I think anybody who passes on him in the first round is making a mistake just in terms of his versatility, what he can do at the DB position. If we go to sleep the first night of the NFL draft and he has not been taken, it's going to feel like a blow to the Longhorn fans just because Jahdae Barron should be a first round pick. I don't think there's 32 players better than him in this draft. Hopefully NFL teams see it that way. And then Andrew Makuba, right? It's probably going to be a third or fourth round pick, but a really instinctive safety, a playmaking safety, somebody that has a lot of experience starting since his true freshman year. That's going to come in and at two big programs in Clemson and Texas, and it's going to make an impact in the National Football League. Once again in a very pass happy league. So excited for those 14 Longhorns, which is a Texas Longhorn record. Going to the NFL Combine. And hopefully all 14 of those guys get drafted. Nonetheless, we know they're going to find a home, even if it's, through, undrafted, free agency, and just happy for all of what those guys did for Texas, over the last couple of years. So a quick word from our sponsors. And, once again, it is Valentine's Day. So 5 things I love about this Texas football team that is next after a quick word from FanDuel. All right, when the game tips off, the NBA action is just getting started, and there's no better place to get in on it than FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. With FanDuel, you can place live bets throughout the game. So even if you missed the opening tip-off or want to bet on a fourth quarter comeback, you can stay in the action. And if you're looking for a bigger payout, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. That's FanDuel.com for your shot at $150 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. I'm like one of those people that you got to do like the N for Nancy, M for Mary, like, because I swear I just said M, and if I didn't, I know it sounded like it. Jeez. All right, it's Friday, man. It's Valentine's Day. 5 things I love, right, about this Texas Longhorns team, my Valentine. First thing is the Arch Manning era is officially underway. You're talking about this 2025 football team. For the last couple of years, it's been when will Arch Manning get in, when Arch Manning gets in, if Arch Manning gets in, how will things look when Arch Manning gets in. All of that is over. Arch Manning is your starting quarterback. He's going to be the first quarterback out there in the spring game. You know what I mean? He's going to be a quarterback taking all the first team reps. You know what I'm saying? He's going to be the quarterback that trots out there against Ohio State. The Arch Manning era at the University of Texas is officially underway, right? And I am excited. We all are excited, but it is here. It's going to be a blast covering this team this year. This team is going to get more attention than any team in college football this year, but we wouldn't want it any other way. The Arch Manning era is officially underway, and he's a damn good football player. That's what makes it exciting, right? He's more than likely going to live up to the hype, and the hype is going to be enormous. But yes, Arch Manning, the biggest story in college football, will take place on the 40 acres this season. Very excited for that. Number 2, Talked a lot over the last couple of weeks about a pass rush, how important a pass rush is to having a dominant football team. And we have the pleasure of watching one of the best, maybe the best edge rusher in college football for the next 2 seasons in Colin Simmons at the University of Texas. He showed it as a true freshman from the moment he came on the scene. That Michigan game, he was just in Davis Warren's lap the whole game. And then throughout the season, he just got better and better to the point to where teams were saying, we cannot let Colin Simmons beat us. We cannot let Colin Simmons wreck our game plan. And I already know he's going to come into this next season bigger, stronger, and even better than he was last year. So the fact that we have arguably the best pass rusher in college football on our defense is going to be a pleasure to watch. And we get to watch it for 2 more seasons at least. The third thing that I love about this Texas football team is that you have a playmaker and a leader like Michael Taft, somebody that just embodies the University of Texas from walk on to one of the best players in college football. That Texas fight, that's what Michael Taft shows. You have him coming back, right? You know, you lose a lot of talent. I just talked about it. 14 players that are going to the NFL Combine, over 20 players that possibly could have gotten an invite to the NFL Combine. You're losing a lot of talent off this team, but you bring back a guy like Michael Taft, and it helps you transition into 2025 and be one of the best teams in college football. So Michael Taft, so excited he's back. Can't wait to watch him for another year, try to help this Texas football team win a national championship. The fourth thing I love about this Texas football team is I think this year we will see the deep ball a lot, right? A lot of the offense the last 3 to 4 years, not taking shots at anybody. Has been a lot of screen passes, and we're still going to throw a lot of screen passes, but it's been a lot of RPO, a lot of behind the line of scrimmage, relying on Yak. This year, it feels like we're going to air it out. You got 3 5-stars coming in, DeAndre Moore and Ryan Wingo coming back. We've talked about Aaron Butler and Parker Livingstone, 2 players that are exceptional at the deep ball. Arch Manning. It feels like we're going to air it out, right? Like, it's going to be really fun watching this Texas offense this year because they are going to push the ball down the field. Can't wait to watch that. And the last thing that I'm excited about is just that I don't take for granted being a Texas fan at all, right? There's 130 college football teams. There's 12 playoff spots. Not every football team is vying for the same thing. Not every fan gets to enjoy the same thing. As a Texas fan, you get to compete for the best recruits in the country. You get to play in the biggest games in the arguably best conference in college football. And every year you go into it knowing your team has a chance to win the national championship. And that is something we should not take for granted as fans because every fan cannot say that. No disrespect. This is just the first school I thought of. What does a Michigan State fan have to be excited about going into next season? What are their goals? To beat Michigan? To be bowl eligible? Like, when they follow recruiting, what gets them excited about recruiting? A low 4-star? You know what I'm saying? Like, and this is no disrespect to Michigan State and their fan base. All I'm saying is that every college football fan does not get the same experience that we do as Texas fans. We just cannot take that for granted because, like I said, we're going after the biggest recruits. We have some of the best players. We play in the biggest games on TV and arguably the best conference. And every year we have a chance to watch our team win a national championship. And that's not something that every college football fan can say because, like I said, some fans are just hoping their team is bowl eligible. Some fans are hoping their team just beats their rival. As Texas fans, we're hoping we win it all. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of Locked On Longhorns, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Hook 'em. Peace.